how close the elf is to victory with 6 areas out of the 8 he needs. And the fact that the one person he was actually actively fighting, he's got 2 that he is, but after this he's now fighting Orcum. But the one person he had been actively fighting is forbidden to attack him. Created the circumstances necessary for sort of a grand alliance. Uric and the Necromancer came to an agreement. The Necromancer can pull back to here and seize this Terra Innoma. Yeah, that sounds like something from 2000 BC in Scandinavia. I don't know. But he has the ability to also expand from here down this west coast, give Uric an expansion into Ringerken, and leave Orcum this opportunity to fight for now. But basically it's let's try to make sure he can't get 2 more areas in this time period. Necromancer also could conceivably build himself a navy to engage directly against the coastal areas, which aren't that far away. That's a long-term goal, though. Right now, the real problem is stopping him at this point. And of course, if the Necromancer starts growing, he will also be a danger. In some ways, it's not as much of one, though. Expansion is somewhat limited, but, well, I'm assuming the Necromancer is going to not be in this alliance very long, simply for the fact that if he gains what he's planning on, he was talking about shipping troops through here, but the truth is he wants to grab this and this. Now he's 1 away. That can't be tolerated either, obviously. And that's something the merchant realizes, but the merchant managed to make alliances with every other player, which is going to, of course, enhance his economics greatly. To some extent, that's a bonus to the elf, because the elf gets half his money every time he collects cash. But still, people are willing to ally with him because they get a significant boost in their own cash as well. So it probably will work out about even. It's going to be tough, though. A lot of people have allied. Well, no, one person. Only Uric and the merchant are allied with Orcum, who's the only one really directly fighting the elf at this point, unless some changes sort of take place. In case you're wondering, I'm kind of boned out of work today. That's why I'm playing more than I expected to. My computer connection's completely down from their side. And it's been out for a while, but I finally got to partially connect enough that they could send, not that anybody intentionally wanted to, but that they could send, hey, lock the computer on them request, which is just part of the automatic thing, which had I not been able to sign on with my onto the private network wouldn't have happened at all. I got a few hours in, not much of any help. Okay, so what do we have here? We did this starting sequence of the game. First of all, obviously the initiative moved. We did diplomacy. We were up to there. The random events for this phase is Driggle again, which boosted everybody's points, their religious points, their faith. We get, actually, Orcum has his Faces of Death, which allows him to just wipe everything out in an area. Unfortunately, as long as the elf is here, he can't cast it. And there's strong reason for the elf to stay. He can't cast it there. He does have some other options, of course. He can do the Cursed Waters and prevent additional forces from being built here, which makes it more difficult for the elf to expand because he has to push forward into there, upward. The elf cannot attack. First of all, he's allied, but he couldn't attack his subject nation without desubjecting it. That also pushed... See, I may have been cheating and giving people too many points because I had been forgetting about the alignment penalty to getting faith points. So some people may have, for the last couple turns, been getting away with a little bit more points than they should have. That's okay. And beyond that, nobody went for the dragon. The only person who really probably would have wanted it is the elf. The extra point seems like a reasonable purchase for him because it's a powerful critter, and he has the cash to buy it. Everyone else is pretty much allied, and the only other person who might have wanted it is Orcam. Some of his allies could have thrown him cash, but they'd rather not do that. They want to see how this plays out. Now, of course, if this plays out really ugly, the elf will gain 2 territories somehow. I'm not sure how he can do that because of the positioning. You know, if this were the pure area game, it would be easier. But due to the positioning and movement requirements, he doesn't have the easy expansion that you have in the pure area game. And I'm beginning to enjoy the Hex version and see the value of it because, yes, in some cases it kind of screwed up people's initial setup, but at this point, it allows you to do things like take a hex like this and prevent the other guy from getting into your territory. It's just some neat little factors like that choke points, if you will, that prevent the other guy from just taking you out easily. Now, of course, from here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, the Pegasi can get in there, and that's why there's still an orc present there, and I'll have to build more forces. But that Pegasus is no longer a threat until the elf takes that. So now we'll be on the taxation and building side of things. What we've seen so far seems to hint that money is a huge factor in this game, and right now money is in the Elf King's hands. First of all, he pulled about 25 bucks off of the merchant, who should be making quite a bit here, about a 50-buck income, but half of it's going down. But the elf, with his larger territories, is also making about 50 bucks using medium taxation. This guy's able to get away with light taxation and still pull in 50. But still, that's 75 bucks without adversely affecting any of the territory. Lots and lots of money. He certainly could have afforded the dragon this turn. And not taking it might affect his chances of winning pretty significantly. What we also see, though, is most of the others are kind of scraping by, taking a lighter taxation. Uric, the necromancer, or Lord Charon, or whatever, don't have to tax too heavily because there's not much they're facing. It's a long walk from Corrigan down to Svartsen or down to Ringerkin. I've already got the forces in place for Terra Ignoma, or Enoma. Definitely think I do need to build a navy here to challenge the elves from a different quadrant, because whatever I gain down here isn't going to work. It's just not sufficient. I'm not going to get there quickly enough. If these two fall, well, almost certainly this will have fallen by then, and perhaps Moeria as well. So unless Orcam can hold things off, and if Orcam loses, that's another territory nearby, say Krag will fall. So it's going to be a really painful situation. And this guy's got so much money to spend, he can build himself up a powerful force to interject into the battlefield very easily. Unfortunately, this is where he needs it. And yes, he can build a lot of elves, perhaps. There, he'll get a free one for one thing. But he may also be building... Actually, he can't build many here. He just gets his free one because he doesn't have a castle there yet. And you build the castles after you build your troops. So he's going to be looking at maybe ferrying troops out of Jylland. It's not going to be incredibly fast for him to gain territory on the new continent until he starts actually building a fortified base there. the castle and maybe some other factors to get him there. So there may be a little bit of time there, and in that time, of course, the necromancer is going to look a lot scarier very shortly. Anyway, that's where we are. Okay, after our production points, Alfie Boy has a real problem. He managed to build some Pegasuses, didn't get a hero here. Actually, trying to see if there's somewhere I could have gotten one otherwise, but I think that's my only temple. So that's the only place I could have gotten a hero from. Other than that, I have one back here I could pull out. I built a Cavalier here that'll allow me to shift some troops into Timbered Land to help defend that, perhaps. But Orcam threw his nasty, you can't build here on this. I couldn't build here now. He could have spent more for Faces of Death to hit this, and maybe I would have built some forces and then had them stripped away. That doesn't work in this case, though, so now I'm facing a fairly hefty force that Orcam was able to build. Remember, he's the guy who who took a lot of taxes in this turn, and he's really drained his income and from both taxation and then from building up big forces. He's got forces here. He's probably planning on sending into Lersoyan, although he'd rather go into Ringricken, but he'd kind of like to give Yorick a greater stance, and that would make Yorick more his ally, essentially. One thing that he could do, though, because of this Faces of Death being here, if he can kill the Elf King, he gets another 2 points of power. He's already at that maximal power, and he's becoming quite potent in terms of that. But here's the problem. Some of that's because of the Tree of Life event. The problem is if he wipes him out, first of all, he's almost impossible to capture this thing. It's in an elven territory. Secondly, that would open this all up to the merchant, maybe to others, which might not be the best move of all. He can't subjugate him, but maybe the 50 gold bribe would be better if he can get that. But it's all speculation because chances are that elf's going to escape, which works out almost as well. It gets me the area, it gets the elf off the continent, and stops making him look like such a bunny, so that then we can concentrate more maybe on the necromancer, which I think is a bigger worry at this point. Others, Yorick and the necromancer are building up to move forward, but they're out of range, and actually so is this guy, although he built some goblins. 1, 2, 3, 4. He's not going to reach Ringricken either. So really the only territory that's likely to fall is over here to the necromancer, and then there's a possibility of this falling, and there's also a possibility of these Pegasi back here that I built up at some expense getting into Krog. So if I attack with everything here, Krog may fall, and that would be painful. But before I get to do that, I get to build assets, which might mean building fortification walls or something like that to help defend some of these areas. Just a consideration. Another thing to worry about, the elf has all his magic left. And there's a couple of forests next to this hex, so he can get some living trees. So he has extra strength available to him, more than I'd expect. Although I have a heck of a hero, and he has none, not having a temple here. All these different things you got to keep into account. It's very hard as a newer player to assess what your chances of success are without thinking real hard about the numbers and bubbling them down there. Okay, building assets. Well, our merchant builds another merchant's guild in place because he makes so much money off that. Now that's kind of cool for the elf too, because he's got him under that. And I looked up the capture rules. Not only does he have to be captured, but he either has to be taken prisoner or killed, obviously, or where he'd be removed from the game, or subjugated for him to lose this his own subjugation over the merchant lord, which is, well, all possible. Killed is the most likely of the options, but chances are, well, the ransom's not going to happen because the elf spent a lot of his gold. He only has 28 left now. He could be ransomed and then owe the other 22, which has to be paid as soon as possible. But that's not quite as valuable, although he has to pay it as soon as possible, so it will come next turn. His income is humongous. He spent a lot of money building up here in Illyria, a windmill, a castle over here in Timordland to help defend that side of things, and then he can build some dwarves. It also has a higher income, even with the alignment difference, than this elfy line, which look like little halflings or something on the picture area. Others less building. I think I may have built a temple up here in the hopes of getting a hero, because I don't have one there. If there wasn't one there already, I don't know. It's kind of hard to remember things. Over here, he built his castle and maybe the camp too, just building up this orcish territory, because that may be where he has to fall back to if things turn badly, where he ends up losing Norland. And right now, it can't be taken by the Necromancer. The Necromancer can't attack it because they're allied. But it's empty. He actually even sacked his hero in the hope of getting another one. Anyway, we're ready to go on to the military phase, and our merchant is the first person. He's probably not going to do anything. I calculated out his money. He kind of wants to keep his humans here in Courland because he can't get them anywhere else. He may throw one of his knights up here just on the off chance that he's going to have to fight the Necromancer at some time. He might put both of them there because they can move quickly. Orcum is not directly, but is involved in an attack here on the Elf King Magrith. He's summoned up a couple of these woodies to help him, and the total is 48 for the evil side, 40 for the good side. Leadership here is +1 for Mayrith and +3 for the hero. Now, that 40 is kind of screwed up though, because only 25 of that is affected by the die roll. I'll use green for Mayrith. He's facing things that are scary, so he's at -1 on the die roll. That gives him a 6 at 25. I'll give him a +7. And our other one is at 9 at 48. His full force is there. That's +20. So that's going to be 68. Take the 47 off. Obviously he's going to win. He's allowed 21 points though, which means he has to lose actually 3 of his 4 ogres because the difference isn't great enough to keep a couple of them in play. So that's a pretty hefty hit. Now you say, well, yeah, but Mayrith's been defeated completely, right? Yeah, except he's in an elven area. So, on anything but a 0, he gets away. And he does. And this is going to fall, put him in the capital down here. This is going to fall into the evil player's hands, or Orcum's hands, at a -4. We see he's also moving here into Lersoyan, and he left some forces behind at Krog, a unit of orcs, which will allow him to capture, to help defend against a possible attack from these Pegasi, which is this big threat right now. Now, this was at 4, so he owes $4 to him. That's not very much. There's, ooh, I forgot the fortifications. Shit. What do they add? Oh, crap. I don't think they add enough to have changed this. Fortifications are +5 to the die roll. Now we were at, Jesus, I don't remember what I rolled. Kind of want to go back and look. We were at 25. I think we had the +7 that would fit with this. 5 more. I don't remember what I rolled, whether it was a 6 or a 7. But let's say it was the highest, there'd be 10 more, so that puts it up to 57 instead of 47. And this was at, Jesus, I don't remember. How many ogres were there? I think there were 4, which is 48. And I don't remember what my roll was, but it was big. I think it was around 65. Now 65 stupid kind of calculator, minus 57 is 8. I still get to keep my ogre. Nothing really changed. The fortifications increased the odds a little bit of the elves defending, but I do have to make a quick check. 1 through 5, the fortifications are destroyed. They are not, and this is going to convert and be handed over to Orcum. Since an ogre survived the assault, that goes down 2 more. None too surprisingly, the necromancer takes Terra in Noma, and he kills off his ogre in doing so, so he gets an undead there instead. He's also moving south here. Uric is swinging through here, all stuff that I kind of planned earlier. Take a look at that. Big empty swaths up there, but now our elf, he's moved his own forces into play here so that he can board the boat and sail somewhere. But he's launched his... Ooh, he's got a hero here. I should probably move that. Just in case I need it. I don't really need him there. But the rest of the forces have swung in the Pegasi into Krog. And now, I got my magic. I got 9 points left. I can seize this orc away from the enemy. So now I have significantly more power here. 36 and 5 for the orc puts me up to 41. This is now undefended, essentially. Now, that doesn't mean completely undefended. It means it's still an evil area. So let's see. The region is evil. The defender's evil, and I'm good, so it's got a defensive 2 there. And Krog has a 9, so make it a defensive 3. It's ogres, which are big guys, which are times 4, so that's 12. As far as I know, I don't get the die roll on this. I'm not sure. You could say either way it would make sense. But without troops, I've only been applying the die roll to the troops. Hey, maybe I've been doing that wrong all this time. Let's see. See, the combat strength is added to the defender's battle strength. The defender's battle strength is the only thing that I see with the die roll here. So, as far as I can tell, this dude's just not in this at all. So we attack with our elves. We've got no leadership ability, but there's no defensive penalty either. And that's going to be a 10, not a 0. So 27 more. We're at 68. We subtract the 12. We are allowed 56. We have 36, 41. We succeed in killing the hero. Krog is worth 2. And it goes down by 4, becoming no longer an area that can produce troops. See if we lose anything here. We've got a castle. That could go. Oh, that stays. So that's going to switch hands as well. And not a good trade for either side. Both the Ochre or Orker or whatever and Marith had better locations for what they like. They've kind of inverted. Overall, I don't think this is good for the elf, but it's also not very promising for our evil priest, especially since we're looking at another player who is just at that same level of 6 territories. But I wanted to make sure that I didn't lose a territory. This was the only thing I can take, and this provides me with its castle, since I managed to take that alive, in a way a better staging portion than this did. Of course, the piper must be paid. This is nice because it has a camp, but it ends up still costing a significant amount of money here. 21 bucks there. It ended up being the loss of a cavalier from down here. I figure I don't really need that, even though I paid for it, right? And the necromancer also lost some troops. What? An orc and a goblin from down in this area. He thinks this is going to be where the excitement is, but he may be wrong, because he's closer to winning now, which may trigger the merchant and Yurik into maybe advancing. Hard call, because as to Yurik, they both have an interest in expanding one more space in that direction. The merchant may not have anything better to do than attack there. The elf is still a problem that really only whoever this guy is, Orca. I can't remember these names. Orcon can deal with. Here we push into what I think is turn 5. Passed on a chance for a really beautiful camera, but way too big for me to hold in my hand and do this. I'd have to get a tripod. And, you know, I've thought that over before, but wow, 25 bucks for really a professional grade one. The guy lost his job, and I bought a nice chair off him. But yeah, he was just basically selling his stuff to try to get money for smokes and such. Not stuff that he didn't really need, but was worth a lot more. Anyway, let's see. I felt kind of bad for not buying the camera, which is why I bought the chair. Better than the chairs I have, at least. I should buy the other one and throw one of mine out. But I have something like 16 chairs I counted now. I'm going to throw a couple out. I do not have a big apartment. I also have like 13 tables, so. Alright. Let's see what we have here. First of all, we collected most of the stuff. Nobody had the money to bid for the dragon this time. The dragon's a defensive creature as far as I can see. A very powerful defensive placement. But it takes a minimum of 10 to get him. Other sides of things, and we want to get rid of this. It's the author counter, essentially, for this game. We ended up seeing, let's see, during the power assignment, many of the players dropped down significantly. So he's only at level 2 now for the Orcum character. That loses him some of his abilities that I have to kind of keep in mind. But our Necromancer made it up to level 4, and that's dangerous. He has the ultimate Necromancy. That means he doesn't really lose battles. After a fight, he gets to raise both sides' units and just keep on fighting. That makes him almost undefeatable if he's got troops present. That's going to be a tough ability to defeat. I think we've let him get too potent. The merchant ended up cutting his diplomatic ties with him, but Uric would not do so. Uric was kind of the mind of, well, I need this, you need that, we're okay, right? We'll just pass it on another turn. And I think that means the Necromancer's, between that and his newfound power, is liable to get the win here. It's funny because they make Orcam the guy you can't have in the two-player game unless both players agree. As far as I'm concerned, this is the power. This is the one thing that you do not want to face in a two-player game. I think it's overpowered in the six-player game, and the fact that he's never faced more than one enemy is definitely not helping any. What our elf is at level 3 here, which is no big deal. He gets that inversion ability still. Most of the people lost power mainly because the tree is gone. The magic event this time, or special event, was here in the Gulf of Bothnia. Storm. That means you don't want to move there. Alright, well, we're on to the economic stuff. Taxation, purchasing units. Well, the only person who had enough cash to, like, tinker with their chances was the elves. And they chose not to. They held on to their cash. They have some $50 left even after building some additional troops. They got another Pegasus down here. Not a lot. An elf here that they didn't have. They also built a castle here to increase their income. And their plan is an attack here on Glorian to take it back. Now, they have forces here and over here that they can 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 sail into there to make an attack. I don't have to bring him there. He gives me a +1 military bonus, but I may not want to expose him to battle. If I do expose him, either way, I can bring walking forests into play. That's liable to be my 7th territory. The danger, or the only danger, being perhaps an attack from Orcan or whatever. However, he didn't bother and have the money to build a boat, which would have been $10 to make an attack. And otherwise, he's really not in position to do so. Maybe from here, 1, 2, 3, 4. He could launch an attack on Glorian if we take that. If not, he's planning on that, but he can't really allow that 7th territory, I don't think. Over here, the merchant isn't going to be able to reach the Kenord goblins. I considered the Necromancer paying $20 to build a boat and a port and sail across to Halsinglar, which is all empty and should be easy to take. The problem is, I don't have the movement points. Using the advanced rules, I'd have to load up the units. Each unit costs a movement point, so with 3 movement points, I'd only get to here. Not worth it. The $20 is more or less what I need for maintaining my army. So I'm planning on Spartisan and moving into position to make an assault on Nurland next turn. Uric's in a lot of trouble here, and very clearly is not going to be able to withstand that kind of attack, I don't think. No reason that I have to keep that alliance. So that looks pretty safe on his side. So the 2 big powers look like they're going to be in the position to add an extra territory this turn, and probably be pretty close to adding another one next turn. What do you do if they're tied? I don't know. Do the rules tell me anything there? I doubt it. It's really not that kind of game. Yeah, I can't even find the victory conditions. Oh, I didn't know this. The required number of areas is lowered by 1 for the player that controls Alland Island over here, or by 3 if you control 4. You just have to keep a unit there. you have to have more units than any other player. More areas than any other player. So, I can make it to Alan. You know what? I'm going to spend the $20. No one's really able to stop this. And build that port and that boat. This is not to say that I'm trying to shorten the game because I don't like it. I'm still planning on continuing playing to a more resolute finish, but there should be some advantage given to taking this victory. I don't know what to give, but certainly the Necromancer seems like kind of the power anyway. Anyhow, if he's permanently got his 4-level power, then he will be very difficult to ever defeat. And that was kind of what I was planning on giving as the bonus. Well, this is the end of the base game. The Necromancer took Svartisen and was able to sail out to Alan for the extra victory point that I forgot even existed. Not that the elf could have, for example, gotten that. The human... Yeah, this territory was actually a close fight, believe it or not. He would have lost his giant if it wasn't his only unit there. Equal value. A 15 defense to a 15 defense, but I ran a +4 leader into place, which was sufficient to take it. So it wasn't a foregone conclusion. Orcum couldn't go after Glorian. He was too weak. He just had a pile of goblins, so he took Larsoyen, which is going to give him the potential of getting Pegasi for whatever that's worth. Well, I'm not quite done yet. Before I close this video off, I'm going to take the income factors into play. One thing I forgot when I'm doing income, instead of destroying pieces, I could destroy these damn things. These are worth like $5 each, and $7 to him. So that's kind of an oops that I haven't been paying attention to. Orcum also failed to use his magic points. He eventually used them on the attack here, doubling all his goblins. But you know, he could have prevented some of the building down here, for example, of more Pegasi, but there was still a significant force. I don't think there was an easy way around it. The only thing that could have happened is Orcum himself, had he placed himself in Glorian or into the position where he could go there, that would have prevented the inversion ability that Mareth used in order to subvert one of the troops. Otherwise, it was a closer fight, but still not terribly close. We had quite a powerful stack here. There was another Pegasus in here, and he inverted an elf rather than the ogre because he didn't want to control the ogre at the end of it all. But an elf he doesn't have to pay for because that's an elven province there. Anyway, it's really hard to convince yourself to sell back, at least for me, to sell back property, even for this guy who gets it for the same price that he builds it for, as long as he maintains his power level, rather than give up some troops. So I gave up a bunch of stuff, kind of in the back here. Still got some things here, but the giants I built, yeah, they didn't make it. These aren't going to be able to make it to the attack anyway against Kennard, which is where I'm planning on hitting next. Alright, what about the wrap for this thing? Even though I'm not completely done, I like to do a wrap when I'm done with the base game. Yeah, you know, I think there's a lot of sort of experience with this game to get more familiar with it. I think there are some powers that I have a really hard time remembering what's going on with, like Orcum. You know, honestly, his abilities are a little weak compared to some of the others. I don't think there's a terrible amount of balance there. I think that's something that kind of, with multiple plays, is going to come out where one player or another, where the players kind of understand, yeah, you know, we can let Orcum go. He does not have that big a power. Likewise, maybe Sandra's powers aren't all that impressive, but they can get there. It's kind of hard to tell, but I definitely feel like the Necromancer is very, very powerful. Maybe that's just sort of a naive look at things. But wow, the fact that he doesn't have to pay maintenance on his main troops, the fact that they become as good as anything else once he gets that second level power. He becomes kind of like cosmic encounter powers like virus or stuff. That you're just like, shit, we gotta squish that thing. We cannot let that survive because it can just get too nasty. There was one that just grows on you. I don't remember, maybe fungus for all I know. But I remember virus being kind of nasty. But virus is nasty right from the beginning. Some of them had something where you could just see that it's just going to get worse and worse as time goes on. Whereas losing troops means that virus actually gets weaker as time goes on. Yeah, let's not wander there any longer. Only one territory not taken, Mori. And, well, I'm going to continue playing. I don't know to what point, but basically the rest of the powers are at the stage where if they don't defeat the Necromancer, he asserts complete control. And he's going to have his permanent level 4 power for having won the game, which is going to make it difficult even if they can get a stranglehold on him. I think they're going to have a hard time even with everybody else against him, even with one power with humongous amounts of resources against him, simply because, well, there's still some disunity, You think the elf's really going to march out against the Necromancer? Or do you think he's going to pad his own nest and try to finish off Orcum down here? And grab territory that's contiguous with his. He's also going to be grabbing cash from the merchant, which means the merchant has a certain degree of willingness to watch the elf die, so that he's at least free. He can't win as long as he's subjected, for whatever that means anymore. So I think any level of the Grand Alliance isn't going to really hold together either, and I've got no problem with that. There's no reason to assume that everybody's going to gang up on the Necromancer because he actually did win. Prior to his victory, they probably should have noticed how close he was. Uric should have stepped in and tried to attack, but poor Uric would have lost Norland, which would have been just as bad, right? I don't know. All right, we're going to send this one up, and I'll just keep playing it because, I can.